Do you watch a lot of self-help videos and do you struggle with implementing their strategies or feeling like you're forcing yourself to do these things? Let me tell you, I've been in your shoes for years trying to force myself to build discipline, force myself to do these habits, and it has never worked for me. Let me explain how I figured out how to implement these strategies, but by not forcing yourself, but by pushing yourself. And let me explain because the way I work is I get very into a topic, and after a while, I tend to drop that topic or tend to drop that habit, tend to drop the discipline for it. And then I would jump into a new thing, a new discipline, a new habit, a new topic, whatever it may be, and get super focused on it, and then I would drop it. The third thing, fourth thing, fifth thing, sixth thing, it'd keep happening. And I don't know why I wouldn't purposely drop something. I would just get bored or disinterested in it, and then I would pick up a new thing. And growing up throughout the years, you'd be told or you would see people talk about just sticking with this thing or doing this one thing, and they're able to just do it and improve. And then the way you grew up, you're thinking, you got to do it this way. This is how to be successful. This is how it works. And it can be very discouraging to feel like something's wrong with you or feel like, why can't I just work like this person works? Or why can't it just, I'm doing the same things they're doing, but how come it's not working? Let me tell you what I figured out, how to work with how you work. And you got to find out how you work. So, as I told you, it took me forever to realize that I'm the type of person that just focuses on one thing, focuses hard on it, gets really into it, spends hours and time into it, but just drops it after, a while. The time frame can depend. It can be a month, it could be a week. I don't know. It just happens. I don't try to make it happen. It just naturally does. And if you're like this, let me tell you what I did to improve myself, self-improvement. Because if you're constantly focusing on one thing, two things, three things, four things, fifth thing, then you just keep going. You're not going to improve. If you want to improve on that first thing, you're never going to see that again. And the first kind of strategy I've implemented, I'll call it juggling. It's where, think of juggling a set of balls or whatever the case is, juggling something. Think there's a certain amount of things you can juggle and you're able to handle it. You're like, okay, this isn't too hard. But think, once you pick up a new thing, you try to juggle it, it gets harder. Maybe you're able to handle it though. You're like, okay. Once you pick up one more thing, it's hard. You're barely able to handle it. Pick up a new thing, you just drop it all. So with juggling, you need to find out how many things you're able to handle, but still juggle. And again, you also don't want to, on the flip side, you don't want to pick too few of things, because if you have too few of things, you're going to get bored. So, for example, I'm getting really into YouTube, and I can break YouTube down into certain balls. This is the neat thing. You can take YouTube as a ball itself as juggling, and then like something like exercise as a ball itself, or health as a ball itself, which involves exercise, sleep, nutrition, and then you can involve like work or something or college or whatever the case you're doing. Those could be separate balls themselves, but then you can break down something like YouTube. So for example, I'm getting into YouTube and I'll break this one down into multiple balls. So January of this year, I got really into cameras. So that was one ball that I was like focused, honing in on. And again, you're not, in this scenario, I know it's kind of confusing, but you're juggling balls as in like, maybe that's not the best analogy, but you're focusing on one ball at a time. Think of it like this. So I'll give you examples. So I'm getting into YouTube. I hyper fixated on cameras, like camera angles, messing with learning different cameras, I bought a camera, just learning how to use them, the settings in them, how you can use them to tell stories or whatever the case. I got super into it for a month. out of nowhere dropped it off the face of the earth. I can't explain. I just got disinterested in it and something new grabbed my attention. That's what happened. So we dropped cameras. Now we're on the new thing. Lately, I've been getting into scripting slash story writing. So getting into the writing aspect of it, as in like writing out what a story is like, or how to tell a good story, or how to, along those lines. I won't get too granular about it. Then it's slowly dropping off. I can tell it's dropping off. See, that's the thing. I've reflected and I've learned myself. I can see it tapering off, but I kind of need to hold on to it a little longer, and we'll explain how to do that as well. Because that is important as well, I think, to not, as soon as you slightly get bored of something, if you want to work on it or you like need to, there's ways to continue to do that without forcing yourself. We'll get into that later, don't worry. But you find your second thing. The third thing, you find another thing. Like I've been getting into drawing, like storyboarding. So that's related to YouTube, at least in my scenario for what I'm trying to do. So I have these three things. I've dropped cameras. I'm about to drop the story writing. Then I'm going to get into whatever the third thing is. So instead of picking up a new thing, I'm going to go back to cameras and get better at cameras, focus on cameras. Then I'm going to get back into story writing, improve my story writing, improve my scripting, back into drawing or storyboarding or whatever. So the thing is, you jump between them. That's what I mean by juggling. You don't add a new thing, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing. You don't keep going. You got to go back to the first one. Think of it like you got like levels, camera work. This is just my example. Example 1, example 2, number 3, they're all at this level. You improve it, improve this one, go back to your first one, improve it, improve this second one, improve the third one. Then they're all gonna go up instead of like improve 1, improve 2, improve 3, improve 4, improve 5, improve 6, improve 7. Like, you get what I'm saying? So the thing with juggling is you got to experiment. How many things can you juggle? Because it's going to be different for everybody. I recommend 3 to 5 things. I think if you go more than that, it's going to be too difficult to go back to the first one. If you juggle less than that, you might get bored of what you're working on and just kind of like go into mindless activity, like mindless consumerism, which is a whole nother thing. And so it's up to you to experiment what works for yourself. And this also can be broken into like, how do you work? Do you go really hard into a topic for a whole day into one thing, and then the second day you're into a whole new thing? Or do you break it down into like the first third of your day, you're into one thing, second third, you're into one thing, final third, you're into the third thing, and then you repeat that? Or it's like, it could be like a week you're into one thing, the next week into another. Experiment, figure out how you work. I'm not trying to give you a cookie cutter, template to follow. That's what I'm trying to get away from, because that's what I see online, what I see people talk about, what I've seen growing up. And I would think, why can't I just fit into this cookie cutter thing? You got to figure out how you work. And let's take it into a metaphorical level. So let's say I was mentioning earlier to push yourself, not force yourself, because if you're just getting into one thing super hard and you just drop it immediately, sometimes you need to keep on that topic or need to keep on that thing, and you can't afford to drop it. Or you just like, if you're jumping too quickly, like, I can only spend 20 minutes doing this thing, like, it's gonna be hard to get stuff done. So my strategy is you want to push yourself, not force yourself. So think of it as going to the gym. If you're going to the gym and you're doing bench press, let's say, if you don't know, that's just where you grab the bar and you're laying horizontal and you just push the bar up and put it back, push it up. It's an exercise for your chest, mostly other muscles too, but we won't get into that. So let's say you're doing bench press. Let's say you want to push yourself. So what does that look like? It means trying to do one more repetition, one more push, and then you can rack the weight, put it up. Now, when you push yourself, you tend to grow. Your muscles tend to grow. And usually when you push yourself, it's like a mind over matter thing. It's not like impossible to do. It's usually like you're able to do it, but it's going to be hard. So keep that in mind. Now, what does forcing yourself look like? Forcing yourself, maybe you finish your bench. Now you're done, you got a good workout in. But you're like, no, these other people are doing more exercises, more workouts. That's how they work. I'm going to do that too. Because I see that's how they work. People say, this is how you should do it. I'll do that. So then you finish your bench press. Then you're going to do incline dumbbell bench press, another chest exercise. Then you're going to do that. You're forcing yourself to do it. It's really hard, You might pull a muscle. You might get strained. You can't work out the next day. And other people, maybe they're able to and work out the next day or do whatever. Maybe those people are different. But you're forcing yourself, you've already got your workout in. You don't have to do that. So that's the difference between forcing yourself and pushing yourself. Now, how to play to your strengths and weaknesses. So whenever you push yourself in this workout example, let's say you're doing bench, instead of switching to a new chest exercise, do squats, do the new exercise, switch it up, because that's what you're good at. That's not something that, it won't be in this example, people might say that you can do squats and bench in the same day, but this is a metaphor. Take it in other aspects of your life. So you don't have to do the same exercise in the same day. You can push yourself though as well. So I'm getting a bit scrambled here. Let me try to pull myself together. So the reason I bring up pushing yourself and forcing yourself is because when you push yourself, you allow yourself to grow. And you want to grow those muscles, those brain muscles of building those habits or building those areas of your life. Again, remember, you need to self-reflect and recognize when you're not able to push yourself anymore, and then it turns to forcing yourself. You got to switch gears. You got to switch to your next thing. And then you got to figure out, how long does that switch look like for? Can you switch to that thing for an hour and go back to your first thing? Do you have to switch for a week? People are different. Figure out what works for you. Now, in conclusion, when you figure out how you work, your output will increase 10, 100, infinite amounts of times, because you're not limiting yourself by forcing unnecessary friction. Remember, we're not trying to avoid pushing yourself. We're just trying not to force ourselves. So again, juggle, find how much you can juggle and what are those things, and always go back to the first thing. Experiment with lengths of time you do things, how often you need to switch, or how long it takes for you to do some things before you switch. Reflect on, am I pushing myself or am I forcing myself? That's really the biggest thing. And you want to push yourself. You don't want to just jump between each thing, because in my opinion, I think you do need to push yourself at least a little to grow in those areas. And keep reflecting, keep pushing yourself, keep switching if this is how your mind works. Because this is how mine works. I'm trying to give you a guide, not a template. So I hope that helps, because for me, it took way too long to figure out that I don't work the traditional way. I work in this aspect, this kind of chaotic aspect, but I found a way to hone that, focus that chaotic energy, and hone it in on what I truly care to grow, because focus is bliss. And if you're unable to focus, consistently on things, then be smart about it. Focus consistently for a little bit, then switch, then you can go back to the initial thing. And yeah, but remember, everybody works different. This might not work for you at all because maybe you're the opposite type. But if you are, then I'm sure you can find guides that'll help you. This is more for people similar to me who just bounce between things more all over the place and want to improve themselves. So I hope that helps.